In this video, I'm going to review the Kebtek KT 940. This is an electric pruning device. It's going to change the way you do pruning. The unit comes in a nice carrying case along with 2 battery packs. That allows you to use one out in the garden while you're charging the other one. And in fact, it comes with a really nice charging unit where you can charge both batteries at the same time. In today's video, I'm going to have a look at the hand pruner, and I'm also going to have a look at the extension pole. The unit also comes with a little accessory kit that has a number of tools, so you can take the head apart and replace the blade, or you might want to take the blade off for sharpening. It also comes with a little tube of oil, except my tube is empty, and there's a note in the manual that says customs won't let them ship the oil. That's not a big deal because you can use any kind of oil. In fact, the manual says you can use motor oil or even cooking oil. Now, I wouldn't use most cooking oils. They're a little heavy, but if you have a very light oil, you could use that. When I got the unit, the batteries were charged, so I was ready to go. Simply turn it on, and you can start cutting. And the cutting is really easy. The unit is a little heavier than hand pruners, and I've compared this to hand pruners in another video, and I'll put a link to that in the description, and I'll put another link at the end of the video. But there's very little stress on your hand while you're doing the pruning, except of course to hold it up. This is the 40mm version. It has quite a large opening. There is also a 30mm. Now 40mm is 1.5 inches. And they claim that you can cut 1.5 inches wood. I tried that in my other video, and it can't do 1.5 inches, but it has no trouble cutting through 1 inch of wood. One of the concerns with a device like this is that the battery may not last very long. I'm not going to test the battery life in this video, but someone else online has done a great job, and they have a YouTube video. The channel is From Spring Farms, and here's a little clip to show you how long this battery really lasts.
Holy crap, this has beyond exceeded the expectations I had set out for it. I have 1,161 cuts on here, with 85% of the battery left. I've been flying down this row.
All right, that's pretty good. It's going to take you all day to do those cuts. So you've got long battery life. And remember, you have 2 batteries. So if one dies, you have the other one ready to go. Let's have a close look at the pruner. So this is the main unit here. It comes with a battery pack that you just simply slide in, and it locks into place here. To take the battery off, you squeeze 2 buttons here, one on either side. You squeeze those down and the battery should come out. But to be honest with you, my batteries don't come out of the unit very well. I have to really work at this. Now this is a new unit, so maybe this will be easier once it wears in a bit. But right now, getting the battery off is a real challenge. To turn the unit on, you press a little button here. You heard the beep. There's 3 little green lights here to tell you that you're at 100% charge. You also have the charge displayed here. So the unit right now is displaying the charge, which is 100%, and it's showing me the total number of cuts that this unit has done, and that's at 247. That's a nice little feature because once you get to a certain number of cuts, you should replace the blade, and so this will tell you how many you have. If you take the pruner and press the trigger, you'd expect something to happen, but nothing really happens. And you think, well, geez, it's maybe not working right. It has a little trick to it. You need to press this quickly twice, and that unlocks the blade. It also resets the number of cuts. So now I'm measuring how many cuts I'm doing in this session. To cut is really simple. Just press the trigger. It takes very little effort to make that blade move. Now be very careful you don't have your finger in here. I'm sure that this will cut off your finger. When you're finished your pruning job, it's a good idea to close this blade. So the way you turn this unit off is to press the trigger, close the blade, and hold it. Now you heard those beeps. That basically shuts this unit down, and now you can turn the power off and put your tool away. Now let's have a look at the extension pole. This is the end where I'm going to put my pruner. There's a little button you can press here and turn the head so you can swivel the pruner. and that locks into place. We come back to this section, there's a lock here that unlocks the extension pole. And this is spring loaded. So if I go way out and let go, it pulls most of the way back. And then I can close it all the way and lock it. There's an attachment here for the shoulder strap. And if I flip the pole around to show you the other end, you have a trigger system here. So once I've got the pruners attached, this becomes my trigger instead of the pruner itself. And at the bottom here, we have room for the battery. So the battery goes in here. Now let's take this outside and show you how it works. One of the features of this pruner is something they call progressive cutting control. When I press the trigger, it cuts. If I don't press the trigger all the way down, the blade only goes partially. And so I can control how quickly the blade progresses by the amount of pressure I put on the trigger. That allows me to control my cut and make a cleaner cut. Now I find the trigger a little sensitive, so that takes a bit of practice. Now maybe if I've used this for a couple weeks, that will get easier. I'm sure it will. But the trigger is a bit sensitive for that. Now why is that important? Well, if I'm cutting off a side branch, I want to get very close to the branch and I want to make a very exact cut. Now with hand pruners I can do that because I control the mechanism very well with my hand. With this, it's the motor that's controlling it. It's a little harder to get this position just perfectly and then press. But you do get better with it with a little practice. So what about the accuracy of the cut? Well, I've done several hundred cuts with this, but at this point I can still prune more accurately with my hand pruner. Now I've been using those for many years, so it's not a fair comparison. It is a little more difficult to position this correctly if you want a nice clean cut, partly because of the speed of the blade and partly because of the weight. So I would rate hand pruners a little more accurate than this unit. But to be honest, I'm a bit fussy with my cuts, and I think most people probably don't take the same amount of time I do to make those cuts. And you'll probably find the pruners on this producing the same result. Now let's see how the unit performs on the pole. This is a real nice addition because normally, if I want to prune something a little higher, I got to get out the ladder. And this would save me an awful lot of time compared to dragging a ladder through the bush. Now the first thing you notice is that it's fairly heavy. You've got the pruner unit here, you've got this head unit, you've got two poles. Remember, there's a smaller pole in here that can be extended out. So you have two aluminum poles, and then you have the battery pack down here. So the whole thing weighs a fair amount. I'm not sure how many hours I can prune like this, but certainly for an hour or so, I think I would be fine with this. Now to start this up, you have to remember that the on button is here, not back here where you want to control it. But the trigger is back here, so this trigger replaces this trigger. So you first press this on. Once the unit's powered up, you can control it from this end. It might be a good idea to wear a helmet when you're doing that. Now I'm lucky, I have my safety hat on right here. Whoops, that didn't work. It actually cuts really well like that. The trigger mechanism and the cutting process is just as easy with the pole as without the pole. Except of course you have to hold the pole up. Now to help you with that, it does come with this strap. But to be quite honest with you, the strap's not that useful. Let me show you the problem with this. The trigger is way down here. That means your trigger hand is way behind you when you're trying to cut. I want to hold this up here, but the strap is preventing me from growing too high. And if I hold it like this, the strap's really not doing anything. For the strap to hold the pole and take some of the weight away, I have to hold it like this. And you really can't cut over your head like this. At least not very high. So I thought, well, maybe I'm using the strap incorrectly. So I went online and looked at some other videos reviewing this product, and what I found was none of them use a strap when they're cutting. They take the strap off and just cut like this. That gives you a much higher reach because now I can hold the pole here, and the cutting end is much higher than if I tried to have a strap on. The strap's really not that useful. It really should be attached to the base here, not up here. Now what happens when I extend the pole? The whole pole from one end to the other is about 8 feet long. Now you have to hold the pole, so you lose a couple feet here, but it's probably about 6 to 7 feet above my head. That's not a bad reach. When you're finished cutting with the extended pole, you just simply loosen this, and there's a spring in here to bring it back, but it doesn't really work that well. It does help a little bit. It makes pushing it in a little easier. That's not a big deal. Now when I started this video, my battery was fully charged. It was at 100%, and it's still at 100%. For most people, this battery is going to last you longer than you're going to want to prune. It's good for several hours, so that's really good. So is it worth getting the pole? I think it depends on what you're cutting. If you're cutting mostly shrubs and you're cutting lower down, then the pole doesn't really give you much of an advantage. Although there is one way you can use the pole I'm going to show you in a second. If you have trees and you're limbing them up and you're cutting branches off trees, it'd be really nice to have the pole. It'll save you hours of time compared to using a ladder. Now most people will get the pole to cut higher branches, but as I was making this video, it occurred to me that there's another use for this. On my property, I go through and clean up a lot of the invasive plants, like European buckthorn. And the way I clean those up is by cutting down low. Now, normally, I'll bend over and use a pruner and cut way down there. That is a lot of work. But with this pole, I can do it standing up. Well, that was a whole lot easier than bending over and cutting with hand pruner, or even cutting it with the electric pruners without the pole. So there's another use for the pole. Now, normally when I do this, I would come along and then paint the stems with Roundup. Paintbrush dipped into some liquid Roundup. That's all you need, and the bush is dead. Now, in case you're wondering, this is an invasive honeysuckle. We have to get rid of those. I had finished filming everything I needed for the video, and then I thought, well, I'll just give it a try out here the tree in front of my house and limb up a few of these branches. There are a couple bigger branches here, and it's done a great job. Now, it did take 2 cuts to get through this, but it did manage it, and it did a nice clean cut. I'm super impressed with this. So what is my overall opinion of this tool? I think it would be a really nice addition to the garden. Now, I think it's really suitable to people who have larger gardens and have more pruning. If you're only pruning an hour a year, probably a bit overkill. But if you've got several acres and a lot of brush to cut back, this would be a really nice tool to have. Now, if you'd like to see a more detailed comparison of this and my hand pruners, I have another video for that right here. Or if you'd like to learn more about pruning, consider taking my pruning course right here. Happy gardening.